So the law school has a unique part of it, and it's the Supreme Courtroom, which is this exact replica, I heard from the blueprints, of the U.S. Supreme Court, the bench area and behind it and stuff. Tell me about that.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we have been committed to the competition program from the founding of the law school, and in about our second or third year, our dean at that point, Dean Matt Staver, wanted to develop a ceremonial moot courtroom, and so he and I talked about a few ideas, and then he had this idea of going to the Supreme Court and perhaps taking pictures of the bench so we could do some kind of a replica. So as I understand it, because of the number of arguments he had made at the Supreme Court, he was very acquainted with General Souter, the clerk, not Justice Souter, but the clerk of the court, and called him and asked if we could send a team up there to take some pictures. And General Souter said, "I'll do you one better. I will send you the blueprints." And so the bench that is in our Supreme Court room is identical to the Supreme Court bench, dimensionally, perhaps not the same material, but the same design, the same dimensions, the same angles, the same height from the floor. Our columns are not real marble, but aside from that, it looks just like the Supreme Court room.
Well, it was something when we had a guest speaker here who had argued 36 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. He was testifying that it's like he's there. He was like, "Where are the justices?" Yeah.
We actually have had a number of individuals that have come here and mooted before they went to the Supreme Court. So we would put faculty and various people up there to be their panel and pummel them with questions so that that individual would be prepared. But they got that experience of the judges sitting in this exact configuration and this distance away from the speaker. We, of course, have a whole lot more seats in the gallery for people to sit than they do at the real Supreme Court. But everything about the bench and the dimensions are identical.
Right. There's a lot of judges that come, I understand, even for internal competitions. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we run 2 internal competitions every year. In the spring, all of our 1Ls compete. It's a mandatory part of our skills program. And then in the fall, we have a voluntary tournament for our 2Ls and 3Ls. For each of those tournaments, we bring in 9 judges. 90% of the time, they've been sitting judges. Occasionally, we'll get a retired judge, but for the most part, they are sitting judges. Initially, we started out locally just with judges that we knew from around here, and then as our experience and footprint has expanded, we have had judges now come in from as far away as Alaska. I had an Alaska judge here in the spring. I have another Alaska judge coming this fall, and I have another Alaska judge coming next spring. So we get contact with one judge, that judge recommends us to one of his colleagues, and it just builds from there. We've had circuit court judges from, I believe, 6 different United States Circuit Courts of Appeal that have been here, Supreme Court justices from a dozen different states, and of course appellate and trial court judges from all over the place.
Well, the only state where it could be farther than Alaska would be Hawaii.
Would be Hawaii.
So are you aiming for Hawaii as well?
Well, I would like to have a judge here from every different state before I retire. But some of those judges, some of those states are a little bit harder to crack, both because of distance and because of political influences, if you will. I actually had a judge committed to come from California. But the attitude of the California bench was such at that point that he believed if he came here, it would be political suicide for him. And so he ultimately withdrew. Some judges that have come here are unanimously impressed with our students and with our program. And so they're very willing to come back again. In fact, frankly, one of the hardest things I have is keeping space for inviting new judges while continuing to invite back the ones that have already been here before, because everyone wants to come back.
Wow, okay.
But we want to continue to get new people and continue to expand our presence and our influence.
Indeed. It speaks to the experiences that they have when they come.
Yes, absolutely.
And there are sitting courts that have held sessions in that courtroom, isn't that right?
Yes, the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit has held court here. and the Air Force Court of Criminal Appeals has held court here. In fact, that was a phenomenal experience where our students got to write amicus brief or friend of the court briefs and submit them to the court and then make arguments as amici before the court when
on actual cases.
On actual cases.
Yeah.
And the Court of Veterans Claims has also been here and held court in that courtroom.
In those instances, it's not mooting. It's
No.
not a moot court. It's an
That's
actual
right.
court.
That's right. Those are actual cases,
Right.
and a number of students have approached me afterwards because of my focus on oral advocacy skills and said, "What do you think about this advocate? And what did you think about that advocate?"
Yes,
And
yes.
some are better than others, but that's real life.
Indeed, indeed. That's fantastic. I mean, this is something that I think is helping to build those relationships with the bench,
Absolutely.
and also by extension, in some instances, with the bar as well. And we have a lot of volunteers who come to help with all these programs and
Absolutely.
things along those lines, or
Yeah,
adjuncts as well, right?
The local bench and bar from Lynchburg and the surrounding area have been supportive of our program from day one. The number of area judges that have supported us, I could count because I have a list, but off the top of my head, I don't know. The number of local attorneys that come during the week to help judge preliminary rounds, and the number of our alums. We've had alums come from as far away as Florida to come judge our internal tournament competitions. I have competed in national tournaments or taken our teams to compete all over the country. Not once has a final round involved 9 judges, but we do it for our internal tournaments.
Meaning sitting current judges.
Sitting current judges.
Yes.
Most national tournaments are judged by 3 or perhaps 5 judges on a panel. We do 9 just for our own students without any other teams being present.
That's excellent. Your contributions to these signature programs of lawyering skills, as well as our competition teams, as well as those we invite in to the Supreme Courtroom and such, have been integral and valuable to this law school.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your contributions along those lines.
I love it.